In this episode, we get a rare look into the short-term rentals market from a true insider. In today's video, I interview Marcus Räder, the CEO and co-founder of HostAway. HostAway is one of the fastest growing channel management and property management software systems out there. And they'll make managing your properties a cinch, especially if you have more than one. You can learn more about HostAway by going to their website, hostaway.com, and I've linked to it in the description below. But let me tell you, Marcus is one connected guy, and in this video he dishes out all the latest trends and talks about how technology will propel hosts, especially during the pandemic. I want to welcome you to another episode of Airbnb Uncovered. I'm Matt, the creator of AirbnbUncovered.com and Airbnb Superhost. On this channel, I uncover some of the best kept hosting secrets, as well as share with you everything that I've ever learned after hosting over 3,000 guests. My tips, tricks, and best practices are all focused on helping new hosts earn more revenue, attract the best guests, and achieve superhost status faster. So if you're new to hosting on Airbnb, this is the right channel for you. Before we get going, I want to remind you about my free masterclass on earning more during the pandemic from Airbnb. If you're currently struggling to earn a profit, then you won't want to miss it. You can RSVP by heading over to airbnbuncovered.com/3hacks. All one word and no spaces. Or you can just follow the link in the description below. So without further ado, let's watch my interview with Marcus Räder, CEO and co-founder of HostAway.
Thanks a lot for having me on.
So Marcus, tell me a little bit about your background. Why did you create HostAway?
First of all, HostAway is a channel manager and a property management system for professional vacation rental and short-term rental property managers. Now, I started working on this more than 5 years ago. I saw there was an imminent need for technology. There was also a lot of disruption going on in the space, and it's been a fascinating journey over the last 5 years to follow up on what I thought at the time was going to be the highlight, which is actually started happening just 2 days ago. Airbnb is doing an IPO. What originally fascinated me about this space is the whole idea about how capital, and when you look at the asset classes around the world, the biggest asset class is not gold, it's not stocks, it's actually real estate, and
I was just going to guess
one asset that is very close to everyone, because everyone needs a place to live, a bit like you need air and water. But what really fascinated me 5 years ago is how I saw that this needs to change. There's a couple of strong trends that have been going on for the last 10, 20 years. They call the global megatrends. One of them is urbanization, people moving to the cities. Okay, this year cities are not the coolest thing on the planet, but I can guarantee you that 20 years from now, the biggest cities in the world will be even bigger. That is no virus is going to change that.
And maybe not even 20 years from now, maybe in 5 years from now, or the trend will reverse.
Exactly. Now another big trend is globalization. People have a need to travel, and even now in this climate, what we're seeing is that people are starting to work remotely. That's a big trend this year. But that just follows the whole globalization, the whole idea that you can be anywhere and do anything. Now, when you combine those three things, the real estate assets, urbanization, and globalization, you quickly come to the realization that the whole idea of having a home in one place and living there your whole life, that's something that worked a couple of generations back. That's not something that's going to work. That's not something that really works for most people today. A lot of people that do exactly that, they are actually dreaming of going somewhere else. They're just not doing it. But a lot of other people are, especially this year, are actually taking that dream and they're actually going somewhere else to work, because they realize they don't have to be tied to an office anymore. They can go anywhere they want. And that's what really fascinated me, and that's what keeps my fire going in this industry. And what we were able to build out of that was a vision where real estate assets will be shared, but not based on who has the most money, but they will actually be shared by time. So you spend some time here, and then you spend some other time there, but you can't really own a lot of real estate because it's expensive. But you can rent it, and that's exactly what Airbnb is all about. It's making travel accessible for everyone, and what we're doing is simply helping things get a bit faster, easier, and cheaper by providing efficient tools for property managers.
So you're really seeing this you taking it from a very large macro level of saying what's going on in the world, how are people going to live, and then you've said, okay, I see this disruption with companies like Airbnb and VRBO, and then you took it right down another level and said, okay, how can technology make this faster, better, cheaper, easier? And that sounds like where HostAway came from.
Yeah, exactly.
As a premier property management software company, what are you seeing in terms of big trends right now? You've probably got links in with Airbnb and Vrbo and HomeAway. So what are you seeing across the short-term rental industry as some big trends emerging, especially out of the pandemic?
Good, very good, good question. And based on the customers that I've spoken to, it's sometimes hard because things change fast right now. They change very fast.
They
It's
do.
sometimes hard to see the big picture. One advantage that we get and that I get is we actually get firsthand information from the big players like Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway, Expedia, Booking.com. They share with us information that often is publicly available but is overlooked.
Or hard to find.
Yeah, exactly.
As someone who tries to find it secondarily, it can be buried.
Well, it's funny. This year, what I've really used as a big data source is the quarterly reports by Booking and Expedia. Mostly because
neat.
Airbnb isn't publicly traded yet, so they don't have the quarterly reports. But
Not yet.
one thing that has really surprised me there is something that nobody has been stating. That yesterday, actually, Bill Gates, some of the viewers may have heard of Bill Gates before, but he came out with a statement yesterday, and he said business travel will never be back. And I thought, well,
really?
finally someone admits it.
Yeah, well, I mean, business travel may not be back, but I'm probably going to steal some of what you're about to say. But pleasure travel is going to come back because people don't have to travel for work, they yearn to experience new things and to see new places. That doesn't go away.
Exactly. That's the thing. But as a former business traveler, I actually spent my youth by burning out on an 18 months let's say trip. I was a business traveler, just flying around the world. My typical work week ended on Saturday night when I came home, and then on Sunday morning I left for the airport again. I did that for 18 months, so I know exactly how it is. But the thing is, when you have that much business travel, what you don't want to do in your spare time is travel.
Good point.
Now, when you're stuck at home, especially if there's not a lot going on, like many places around the world, there's not a lot going on. That new nightclub that was about to open, well, it's not going to open this year.
Nope.
You suddenly want to travel a lot more. And what I'm hearing from the OTAs, the online travel agencies, is that this trend can really be seen in the bookings that come in. So what's in really high demand right now is, first of all, family-friendly places. Because a business traveler is alone, typically, or traveling with colleagues. And then you have different travel needs compared to traveling with your family. And that's really one big trend, that people are taking trips with their family a lot more frequent. So if they previously they did a few business trips, maybe mom went away for a couple of trips a year, dad went away for a few trips a year. That's not happening now, but instead they're taking the entire family and going away for the weekend. And that's in between the weeks that they are off during the year. And another big trend is the location. So some of our customers have been very fortunate this year because they have happened to be in locations that are not that exciting, but this year they have actually been the top locations. So typically these are locations that are in smaller towns or sometimes even completely rural areas, but they're located close to the big cities.
And so that's that's travelers trying to take themselves out of the city, out of all this coronavirus, and being in an urban environment.
Exactly. And another trend is that the bookings come in very late. So travel plans are made entirely different. You don't plan your next year's vacation and you spend 8 months of your life planning that vacation. Instead, you might be planning it, but you actually choose your accommodation last minute. And
well, you don't pull the trigger, because if you pull the trigger too early and you find out that where you want to go is the source, a hotspot or rising coronavirus cases, then you're like, oh, we're not going to go there. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we like to think about places that we could go, do some research around those places, and then when the time gets closer, just pick one based on what's happening in the world, and then booking them more last minute.
Exactly, and also when it comes to the overall consumer demand, I know a lot of people are suffering the economic downfall of what's going on right now. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people whose income has been affected in a minimal way, but their expenses have shifted. They used to go to restaurants, they used to buy airplane tickets. And now what they're doing instead is they're spending that saved money on repairing their homes or buying fancy toys, maybe buying a new car, but also going on a vacation. But that vacation is not going to be a airplane ride around the world. It's going to be getting in a car, driving somewhere for a couple of hours, and going to see a completely new place. And a part of that is also that they're willing or actually able to spend more money on bigger, more luxurious places. So let's say the traditional weekend in Vegas, where you get a tiny hotel room and then you go out partying. Instead of that, what you want now is a big house, maybe with a pool, maybe near the beach, something like that, where you can really spend time and get all that space that most of us don't have in our daily lives.
If you're a host on Airbnb and your bookings haven't recovered since the pandemic began, then you won't want to miss my free masterclass on the 3 hacks to earning more on Airbnb during the pandemic. See, most hosts think that the only way to increase bookings is to lower their price. But that simply isn't true. There are many things that we can do to improve our search ranking on Airbnb. And that's the second hack that I'll be getting into in my free masterclass on earning more on Airbnb during the pandemic. If you're losing money on your Airbnb, then you need to attend my free masterclass. If you're thinking of moving to a long-term tenant or selling altogether, then you need to attend my free masterclass. If you're brand new to hosting on Airbnb, then you need to attend my free masterclass. The link to register and the dates and times are all below where you're watching this video right now.
So tell me, how should a property manager position themselves to be successful in 2021? We're seeing all kinds of changes, the possibility of a vaccine on the horizon. So really, what should property managers be doing over the next year?
Very good question. Based on the trends that we're seeing right now, I think each property manager needs to really get their own vision together and figure out which of these trends do they believe in. Do they believe that people will get cottages, or will they buy a plane ticket and go to Paris? But that's an important decision to make. They need to make the decision on what's life going to look like in 2021, and then act accordingly. But there's a couple of things here that even pre-COVID that I've always been telling property managers is that the business model of a property manager is really a two-sided marketplace. There's tons of literature about two-sided marketplaces. I think one of them is Airbnb. But the property managers at the same time, what they have is supply and demand, and they need to manage that. So property managers acquire contracts to manage properties, but then they also acquire guests who stay there. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is that Airbnb was successful because they managed to identify through different parts of their growth story, identify different segments. They found the supply and they found the demand, and they managed to get that matched. Now, what property managers really need to think about is the audience that they're targeting. Who is it that's going to stay in their places? And when they figure that out, then they will have to also adopt on the supply side. So they will have to actively keep their portfolio so that it fits within that same target audience. So if you advertise places near a beach that are big for families, then you shouldn't be taking on small units far away from the beach, to name just one example.
Yeah.
Now, there's many ways to be successful, regardless of the location and regardless of the type of property. But something that they should at least make their mind up about is whether they target families or young couples or groups of friends, because that makes a big difference for the place. I can give just a simple example from my own experience. We also rented a cottage this year, and we actually chose one that had a playground in the backyard.
Oh, really?
Yes, and that's just one example of being family friendly, because that's if you're a group of 20-year-olds and you want to go out and be on the beach all day, you don't need a playground in the backyard. But that's
And you may
also,
avoid
yeah,
and you may avoid that property because the property manager or the owner may have invested in the playground versus a hot tub. And as a group of 20 somethings, the hot tub is really what you want.
Exactly. And if you have a small child, probably a hot tub is really what you don't want. And
No.
that's a choice. It's not that one is better than the other, but
Yep.
it's when you're a property manager, you're building your own marketplace and you want to grow it as much as possible. But it'll make it a lot easier if your guest profile, your ideal customer profile, is fairly similar. And that's a lot easier if you have a big amount of properties that are fairly similar or are able to cater to that same segment. Yeah.
I was just going to say, and to pivot. So if you have a larger portfolio, depending on the trend, if perhaps, it's like you just said, adding a playground to the property, or highlighting over the holidays that you have extra tables and chairs to do a big Christmas dinner where everybody gets space to sit down and eat together.
Exactly. Another thing that this year and in 2021 will be very important, but also previously, is make sure you advertise the amenities you have. And this is something that especially the OTAs are struggling with right now. Airbnb rolled out their new cleaning protocols, but the consumers that want to rent places, they want to know about the cleaning, because
They do. Yeah.
hotels have been dirty and probably always will be. Well, it's just very hard. I think Gordon Ramsay has a show about hotels where he goes and check how clean they are. But the same, of course, goes for vacation rentals. But now, since that's something that's high in demand, consumers want to know how the place is cleaned. Advertise that. If you got a great cleaning protocol, make sure you log in to the OTA. Make sure you check in your property management system that you have all the checkboxes clicked there, so that consumers who are looking for places that are professionally cleaned or are cleaned in the way that they want it to be, that they can actually find your property.
You are preaching to the choir, my friend. I have been all about the enhanced cleaning and marketing that to your potential guests on my YouTube channel. So I'm glad to see that we're aligned on that. And to be perfectly honest, it doesn't have to be a full sanitization 8-hour clean between guests, there are hacks and things that you can do to make it go faster so that you don't wind up having to block out full 24 hours between stays while still maintaining a very clean place that is sanitized in all the right areas and will keep your guests safe. So one last question here. As things are changing in the world, so as travel trends are changing, as the coronavirus the pandemic comes closer to an end next year, how's technology going to play into all of this?
I think is fairly obvious is that anyone who's doing an in-person check-in has been able to accelerate that a lot by incorporating smart locks, by incorporating various IoT technology, for example.
IoT? Internet of Things.
Yes, like smart
Yep.
thermostats so that the place is warm when you get there, or cold if you're going someplace that's
Yeah.
warm. But also things like check-in on the mobile app, people giving their ID or in some locations pay the taxes online rather than giving cash. One other thing is the demand for more services. Like I mentioned before, the travel consumption behavior has changed, and people are actually willing to pay for more. So if you're able to sell something extra, that can bring a very nice piece of revenue. For example, you can stock the fridge, you can bring out a bottle of wine, and if you have technology, you can actually do all of that online and then delegate the task to your cleaner, and that's something that can earn you a passive income stream that perhaps the consumers last year or the target audience you had last year were not willing to pay for, but it's worth giving a try this year.
One example of that is, just as you're saying, stock the fridge. And so how do you do it so that you're able to charge a premium for it, but not spend half the day grocery shopping? And, you look to technology again, and you see that you can order groceries online and have them delivered. And if you have them delivered while your cleaning staff are there, then all the better.
Exactly, that's very true, and you can automate the sales process as well by having a nice guest portal and say, hey, we just want some extra information for you. If you want any extra services, you're free to order them as well. Then there's one interesting trend that I think technology will help a lot with. So what has happened this year, and this is pretty global. Perhaps I haven't checked up on Asia, but at least in North America and in Europe, a lot of property transactions have taken place this year. And one key driver for that has been that the middle class who have been living in cities, they suddenly realize that cottage, they really want to buy it.
Yeah.
And what they pretty quickly will realize next year is that cottage actually is a huge pain. It costs a lot of money to maintain it, and you need to go there, you need to fix things. And maybe they can afford to hire people to take care of it, but pretty soon they may end up actually just renting it out, because that's a pretty good revenue stream. Now, as a property manager, that brings you a new opportunity. You get to work with a whole new class, a whole new generation, call it, that wouldn't consider themselves being real estate investors at all, that just happen to own a place. But for this generation, unlike, let's say, a real estate investor who's been in the business 20 years and know exactly what type of properties they go for, these are people who are going to value technology. And if you can provide them with an owner interface and automated reporting, that is something that really will make you stand out as a property manager. And just like you need to think about the guests that are coming, you should also be thinking about, okay, whose properties are you managing? Because maybe the people whose properties you're managing right now, that was a great cross-cut of last year's vacation rental owners. But this year, a lot has changed. A lot of different people who never even thought they would buy a vacation rental, they have actually made the purchase this year. Try to figure out how can you help them. What do they want? If they want everything automated online, they want the mobile app to see how things are going, then that's what you can give them.
And so as a property manager, you almost get an opportunity to educate your new client about how things should be managed. And if you are able to show them kind of the gold star of property management tools and technology right off the bat, then you end that search in many cases. Because if you're kind of checking all the boxes, your property, your client, your owner may be saying to themselves, oh, I'm really scared, I'm not so sure. Well, hey, I have a portal that you can log into. You can see everything as it happens. You don't have to be involved, but if you want to keep an eye on it, you absolutely can.
Exactly. That's a real opportunity, and it's something that will also stay a long time. Those people who bought a vacation home this year, even though they swore that they would never do that because it's a bad investment,
Yep.
they're going to go through cycles. So not all of them will be interested in your services this year. Some of them will not rent out this year. They'll start renting out next year, but they'll start doing it themselves, and they will see how much work it is, especially if you're doing it remotely. And so we will have, over the coming years, we will have a steady inflow of new property owners that need professional vacation rental property management. And that's really good for this industry. But it will take time, because if someone bought a vacation home to stay in with their family, their first thought is probably not to rent it out. So it will come with time.
And probably coming with getting coronavirus under control. So this year I wanted to use it because I bought it. It's new. We wanted to get out of the city. Next year, where the virus is likely still going on until a vaccine is more prevalently available, they'll be using it again next summer. But the following summer, and getting back to some of the things we talked about earlier, but wanting to explore the world and also exploring things close to home, the need to be at that vacation property goes down, and then it ends up sitting empty. So, and like you say, it ends up costing a lot of money. There's maintenance. And so all of a sudden, if you're only there for 1 or 2 weeks during the summer or every few weekends, you either end up spending your entire weekend, staining a fence or redoing a balcony, or you look for a way to balance the cost, which is to rent it sometimes, to get somebody to look after it for you. And then you can kind of go and be a guest in your own property.
Exactly. It's exactly where I started going into this business 5 years ago, where I envisioned that real estate should be more of an asset that's flexible, and that's exactly what we're going to see in the coming years. 2020 has really accelerated that, where people realize that having one home just isn't good enough, because if you're stuck in the city, you want to get out, and if you're stuck in a small town, you probably want to go somewhere else as well. And so and I think that's a major contributor also to Airbnb's IPO. I think they're going to do great in the coming years. But yeah, this year has been tough for the travel industry as a whole, but we are looking at a very bright future.
That is great to hear. So why don't we end it right here on a positive note? Marcus, again, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you stay safe and healthy.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me over.
Well, there you have it, my interview with Marcus Räder, CEO and co-founder of HostAway. I don't know about you, but I found that conversation so uplifting. Marcus just seems to have a way to analyze the data to uncover trends that no one else is seeing. I mean, come on, a real growth in the property management business for middle-class people who bought cottages who will soon realize that they don't want to manage them? That is pure gold. Well, anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that interview with Marcus, and if you liked that type of video, then please give it a thumbs up, and I'll do more of them. If you're looking for more resources to get your Airbnb through the pandemic without losing any more money, then join me on my free masterclass on the 3 hacks to earning more on Airbnb during the pandemic. To register, just head on over to AirbnbUncovered.com/3 hacks, all one word and no spaces, or follow the link in the description below. Well, until next time, when I'm back with another tip, trick, or best practice for Airbnb hosts. Bye for now.